would like to welcome our last speaker of this session, Helga Nowotny. She is former president of the European Research Council. She was also professor of science and technology studies at the ETH Zurich, a discipline we both share. And I'm very much looking forward to the talk on prediction, uncertainty, and the illusion of control, challenges for digitalized medicine.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. As you heard, I'm the last speaker. I will try to stay within the time limit. And I want to speak to you about some of the challenges for digitalized medicine that I see. I will approach it through the topics of prediction, uncertainty, illusion of control, not necessarily in this order. Now, convergence, in my view, means how do we bring the living and the artificial together? And I would say they are made for each other because they are made from each other. We human beings are the product of biological evolution. And biological evolution has equipped us to be engaged in something that we call cultural evolution. And science is the best example for what cultural evolution can do. And being made for each other means there is no sharp dichotomy between the living and the artificial, in the sense that we, living beings, continue to produce an artificial world. And we now live in a world that is more and more a world that is being made by us. You just heard about climate change, you heard about the Anthropocene, the SDGs. We live increasingly in a world of our making. The Anthropocene, for better or worse, is one confirmation of what I say. But there's also what you also saw here in the beginning, the duplication of the world by data. I call it the mirror world. We are able to create a mirror world. And again, it's us to do something as living beings that is artificial. Now, we have always imitated as humans and learned from nature. Science has profited enormously and has learned how to imitate nature. But sticking within science, most of you know that the big changes came last century when the age of so-called omics started, the way how computational biology started to look after a set of entities, be they proteins, be they cells of different types, and to look at the structure, the function, the composition, the interactions between them. And this made it possible to study large sets of data. People worried at that moment that what would it do to the development of biology, because now everything will be data-driven. But by and large, we have profited enormously from this way of scientific developments. AlphaFold has already been mentioned, I think, several times today. AlphaFold, the way how AI is able now to show how proteins are being folded. This was called the scientific breakthrough in the year 2021. What few people remember anymore was before this breakthrough, the same alpha folding was celebrated as the hallmark of citizen science, because there were human beings, citizens, involved in a huge scientific project to do exactly what AlphaFold is now doing in a moment. And I think for me this epitomizes. We were celebrating, there's even a paper in Nature that credited the citizens that were working on it, and now we have AI. So it just shows the enormous jump that we have been able to make. And of course, then there were the lessons from COVID, where due to rapid throughput sequencing of the virus, scientists knew very quickly what this new virus was and were able to trace it And there was the moment that we all found very uplifting when science was at the forefront, but then the backlash set in, as we know, but that's a different story. Now, having spoken about this recent and rapid progress that laid the basis for it, nevertheless raises a question. And when I spoke about we being engaged in shaping our world, making an artificial world around us, there comes a crucial question to my mind. And this goes back to the beginning of the Enlightenment. Giambattista Vico, a Neapolitan enlightened thinker, who left us with one sentence. He said in 1711, "We understand only what we make." This is a very deep insight that every practicing scientist is able to relate to. But the question posed by what was said 300 years ago, the question is, do we still understand what we make? We make so much, do we still understand what we make? For AI, it's a very specific question. We don't understand what we make. We don't understand what it works. We are looking for causality, but we don't understand it yet. Let alone about the implications of what we make. So this is the guiding question. Now, the recent and rapid progress, I could not be with you yesterday, but you probably heard a lot about the progress that has been made, diagnostic accuracy, drug discovery, literature-based discovery, automated labs, and so on. And then there is the big promise always on the horizon, the quest for precision medicine, the age of scientific wellness, as Leroy Hood calls it, with personalized, predictive, data-rich medicine, again, once on the horizon. And as the book subtitle says, it's in your hands. Now, there are concerns. And some of the concerns AI in medicine shares with general concerns that we have. First of all, the trustworthiness. How trustworthy is AI? We have heard about it. But when it comes to medicine, it gets an additional edge to it, namely because it can endanger the life of patients if you rely on an AI that is untrustworthy. But it also reinforces the existing inequalities in society because there are data that are at the basis of it, and whose data are being collected by whom and what is done with these data. And there are parts of society where we do not have data from them. We leave out some parts of society that are excluded from this kind of wonderful progress that we can see on the horizon. And then, of course, there's the question of regulation. And especially, I see a gray zone when it comes to the area of mental health. And mental health is of special relevance here, not only because of the general developments, and several of you have spoken about it, about loneliness, isolation, about the way how we tend to forget that we have a body and how important our body in the world is, what it means for values and so on. But also because AI has an enormous impact on our cognitive abilities and our emotional makeup. So this is a very, very important area. And these concerns, of course, lead on to the other question: how can we integrate the digital into the social world? If we speak about prevention, and this is one of the promises that come with AI in digitalized medicine, of course, that we will be able to predict and therefore to prevent diseases. So prevention depends on prediction, prediction depends on data. And where do we get whose data, who curates them, who owns them? And personalization depends on participation. Not everyone wears fitness bands or will be able or ready to furnish data to the providers, and nobody knows what the providers will do with these data. There is one large public hospital in Berlin that recently is buying services from a provider of AI with the data which were given free from the hospital. So it's this kind of absurd situation that we may get into it, because nobody has any answers. And you heard also from Bart just now how an AI-based health care system could be available for all. There's also the EU Digital Health Technology Initiative that very much depends on standardization. And Ulrike Feld has written about in a very intriguing way how this space for health technologies in Europe depends also on standardization, and the patient citizen becomes a sort of standardized entity in this process. Now, let me take one step back. What is at the basis of it? And prediction is, in my view, a key. You need data, you need computational power, you need, of course, sophisticated algorithm, but what we want to get out of it, the use of it, is really prediction. Now, prediction comes in different flavors. There's prediction in science. It started with physics, and it has served science very well because you can make predictions, and physics was the one discipline that could make rather precise predictions that then had to be tested. You were setting up experiments to test your predictions. So within science, it's a big help because you can test your predictions. The social world is slightly different. In every civilization, in every culture of the world from the very beginning, people have practiced divination of various kinds. They used oracle bones in China, or they used chicken bones in Africa in order wanting to know what the future would hold. So it's a deep-seated wish that we as humans have. We want to know the future. So this is the social world, and their testing becomes much more difficult compared to science. And there's particular one phenomenon that is well known, namely self-fulfilling prophecies. If enough people believe what the prediction says and act accordingly, the prediction will come through. This works only in the social world. And we have to take this into account. And then there's prediction in medicine, where you have a bit of science, you have a bit of the social wishful thinking, and perhaps sometimes you have placebo effects, which is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. And there is one book that was written by Nicholas Christakis on prognosis, prediction, and prophecy. He followed doctors, and he wanted to know, what do doctors actually do when they tell the patient and the family want to know, what's going to happen to me? Will I survive? How long? Etc. And he found that doctors use a very intricate mix, a bit of ritual, a bit of magic, a bit of wishful thinking, a bit of experience, etc. So prediction is key, but it comes in different flavors. We should not forget predictions are based on extrapolations from past data when we speak about AI. The quality matters, the biases that they have matter, inclusivity, and in medicine in particular, which are the reference groups that we are using. Because without reference groups, you're stuck with one case. What can you do? Nothing. Then there's the problem how to communicate risks and probabilities. Doctors are particularly bad in communicating probabilities, and my colleague Gerd Gigerenzer decades ago has set up how to teach doctors how to communicate probabilities to patients. And also patients differ, like some of us are rather risk-averse, others are risk-friendly, and the way how we take this information in, again, varies. And then there's also, when you move to the practical side, Klaus Heuer, who has studied the Danish healthcare system, the most advanced in terms of being AI-based in Europe. And he came up with finding a lot of what he calls data paradoxes, a gap between the promises of data and why hospitals and governments, but also patient groups are eager to adapt, at least in Denmark, AI-based services, and the practicalities in everyday life. And he says, on the one hand, you gain time. On the other hand, you lose time because now you have to fill in different forms, you have to monitor this, and so on. You empower the patients and you dispower the patient. So there is the paradox, it's both, and you find evidence for both the positive sides, the negative sides, and the shifts that occur with it. Now, if I still have time, let me briefly sketch the other red thread, the illusion of control and the control of illusion, because after all, AI is a technology. It's a technology, a tool, but it has some unique features. And one of the unique features that make it so powerful is that it interacts and we interact with it in terms of our cognitive abilities and our emotions, which other technologies normally do not do. But this is important. With other technologies, it shares, or it should share, the wish to control a technology. And for me, technology, in a very simple sense, is about control. Every technical university teaches the engineering students about errors, how to control errors. Control theory is an important part in the curriculum because a technology functions only when it works. And this means you have to have control to make it work. So this is built into technology itself. But of course, this is not enough. And this was already discovered in the 19th century, the beginning of industrialization, when the weaving machine, the manufacturing machines on the shop floor were not enough to function because there were people who had to serve them, who had to work with the machine. And you had accidents there. And this led, of course, this was part of the labor movement that took it up. And you had lots of conflicts until this became part of what we now take for granted, that of course you have to build machines that not only function as machines, but that they are also safe for those who work with them. And we have now we are demanding that this control over technology that is never complete, the control that we have, is being extended to the effects it has. It starts with health and safety. We are now expanding it to the environment. And with AI, we have the challenge that we have to expand it to what does it do with us and what do we do with it in terms of our cognition and emotions. So this is one of the big challenges that we have. Regulation has been mentioned again many, many times. It's absolutely necessary, but it's also very difficult, as we know, as the law always lags behind. And if you have legal regulation too early, you are stifling innovation. If you have it too late, it is too late. And to find the middle way is very, very tricky and difficult. But I wonder sometimes whether the general regulation of AI could not learn something also from the way how the healthcare sector and medicine have fared in the past with regulation. And I think one difference is that in medicine, a regulation and also the ethical approach always tried to take into account the patient and what is the view and attitude and reaction from the patient. And I think something of this might perhaps be useful in the general regulation of AI. I want to close with a personal reminiscence of the biologist, and of course among you know Sidney Brenner, the Nobel laureate, for his great achievements. I was fortunate to meet him in person in Singapore. I was a visiting professor at NTU, and I had the occasion in 2017 and 18 to meet him several times. And we had, one day, we had this conversation when he said, you know, mathematics deals with the perfect, physics deals with the optimal, biology, to which he contributed so much, deals with the satisfactory. And then I said, but Sidney, you're leaving out the social sciences. Maybe you think they are not sciences, but I tell you what the social sciences deal with. They deal with the messy. And it's the messiness of the social world that whatever AI does, whatever mathematics, physics, and biology come up with and put to the disposal in the world, it has to deal with the messiness of the world. Thank you.